I have to be honest, anytime I saw banana pudding served at a party, I stayed far, far away from it. There was something about it that I thought that can't possibly be any good. The few times I've tasted it, it was so-so until I made it this way. Welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. Today's recipe is for an iconic American dessert, banana pudding. And guess what? Banana pudding isn't actually banana pudding. It's vanilla pudding with banana slices, and of course, you can't have it without the vanilla wafers, or Nilla wafers as they're called. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is make our vanilla pudding. So let me get this stuff out of the way and we're gonna get started. This is a really quick process. It is so easy to do that I urge you to make your own vanilla pudding for this. We're gonna start off by making a vanilla custard, and then I will explain my secret to how this banana pudding became the best banana pudding with a meringue top. It's fantastic. All right, so we need 2 cups of milk. You don't need your bananas right now. We need 3 large eggs, 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, and 1/2 cup of white sugar. So what I'm gonna do first is separate my egg yolks from the egg whites. And when you go to do this, which I just do it manually, I mean, I've got little tools and stuff, but I just find it's just as easy to use the shell. However, it is a lot easier if your eggs are cold. So these are straight out of the fridge. Then I give them 1 crack here and open carefully. Look, mine cracked right down the center. Hold the yolk in one of the sides of the shell and then just pass it back and forth until you get all the white into your bowl. Sometimes I'll put that in, sometimes I just leave it out. There we go. And then the yolk goes into the other bowl, okay? I'm gonna repeat that for all of them. All right, so the egg yolks are going into our pudding. The egg whites make our meringue topping, and it is best to let them come to room temperature. They're gonna whip up a little bit easier for you, so I just leave them over to the side. I'm using the Ninja Foodi 6.5 quart for this recipe with the ceramic pot, and that is because it heats amazingly well and evenly. I'm able to control the temperatures very well with the Ninja Foodi. That is not all the time true on the stove. However, you can make this recipe on the stove, just don't use a very thin bottom aluminum pot. It conducts the heat too quickly, and it's going to probably scald your pudding as it thickens, okay, before it's all the way done. It might burn it. So definitely stick with a heavy bottom pot on the stove, or if you have the Ninja Foodi or Instant Pot, you can use it. Now, one thing, if you're gonna use the stainless steel pot, like the Instant Pots come with instead of the ceramic coating, you're gonna wanna take your heat down 1 step, okay? I start out on high, you're probably gonna wanna start out on the step below that, which is medium high, I think. All right, so before we get started making our pudding, we're gonna make our cornstarch slurry that goes into our pudding at the end to thicken it. I tried, when I first started testing this recipe, I tried the traditional way of using flour to thicken it, and I couldn't even eat it. I just thought it was horrible. So you can absolutely use flour if you want to. If you have a great custard recipe that you love to use, you can make that, make it any way you want. For me, I did not like it with flour, so I'm using a cornstarch slurry to thicken it. And of course, the egg yolks help too. So 2 cups of milk, we're gonna put about 1/4 cup into our 3 tablespoons. You don't have to be precise about that at all. And then I'm going to stir it up so that it becomes a slurry and it's nice and thin and all the cornstarch is mixed in and not lumpy. Now, as this mixture sits here, it could start to settle. So right before you add it in, you probably want to give it another little quick stir. All right, that looks good. So I'll set that over here. Now we're gonna put the remaining, and I got right at 1/4 cup in there. So we have 1 3/4 cups of milk going into the inner pot. Want to go ahead and turn the Ninja Foodi on. Sear saute, high is what you want. Remember, if you're using the stainless steel, bump it down to medium-high, okay? And now we're gonna let the milk steam with the sugar, so half of a cup of sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm using fine grind sea salt. You can use kosher salt. If you're gonna use table salt, only do a pinch, so about 1/8 of a teaspoon. All right. Now, what we want is for this to start to steam so that the sugar melts and the milk heats up, but you do not want it to boil, okay? So I'm gonna stir in the sugar, and then I'm just gonna leave it alone and let it sit there, but keep an eye on it. When I start to see some steam coming up, I know we are ready to then temper our egg yolks. So the egg yolks are in this little bowl. I'm just gonna go ahead and just lightly whisk them up. These are fresh eggs from my chickens, so you can see the yolks are really, really orange. So if yours don't look like this, it's perfectly fine. Then I have a little measuring cup here. So any sort of a scoop, anything that you can scoop out about a 1/4 cup of the hot milk, get that ready, because when this starts steaming, we're gonna scoop it out and we're gonna temper the egg yolks by streaming in the hot milk and whisking as we go, okay? That's called tempering, and we do that to introduce the heat from the hot milk to the colder eggs so that they don't start to cook right away when we add them into our pudding, okay? So it's a very important step. If you just started to pour in your eggs into your hot mixture here, you would end up cooking your eggs and you would have some scrambled egg pieces and some texture to your pudding that would not be pleasant, okay? All right, so I'm starting to hear this heat up. Stir, every once in a while. It's not a constant stir, but you want to get that sugar off the bottom and into the milk, and make sure that the milk does not scorch on the bottom. All right, I'm starting to see some steam. So that is wonderful. And we're ready to temper our egg yolks. So now I want to back the heat down to medium low. All right, that's important because you don't want this to start to boil, so make sure you back that heat down. Now I'm going to scoop out some of this milk, and that will be good. It's a 1/4 cup there. That's perfect. Now to temper your egg yolks, you want to take the hot liquid, whether it's milk or something else, and stream it in as you are whisking. All right, that's good. Perfect. Now our eggs are tempered and we can add them into our pudding. And I'm gonna get a whisk that is safe for my ceramic coated pot to whisk the eggs in. All right, same process now to add in the eggs to your hot milk. Keep that milk moving around, okay? Because it's steamy and we do not want it so hot that it's going to cook these eggs. So move it around and put in just a little bit at a time. Just a little bit at a time, and keep whisking. I cannot say this enough. Keep the milk moving as you do this. A little bit more. A little bit more. And just keep adding it. Small increments, keep moving the milk around. Now, another thing you can do if you're worried that you're gonna cook your egg yolks, okay? You can pull your pot out to get it off the heat altogether when you do this part. It's perfectly fine. All right, here we go. We're almost done. No cooking. We are doing well. Now the cornstarch goes in. Keep stirring. Keep whisking it around. That's important because you don't want any hot spots. All right, so next thing is the cornstarch. So give it a little stir around. Now cornstarch needs heat to activate. So we do have to keep this over the heat to thicken up the pudding. And then keep stirring. And I'm gonna show you exactly when you want to turn your heat off. Timing is pretty important with this recipe because you don't want to burn your pudding, right? It's one of the common things that happens is people will scorch their pudding. Keep whisking the whole time. That's gonna help or stirring. Like you could use a wooden spoon at this point too. You don't have to use a whisk. I probably could have used my spatula the whole time, honestly. But I feel like I can get more air, which cools down the mixture when I use this whisk. So I like to use it. All right. People always ask me where I get these things. Honestly, I think I got this at like Ollie's or something. If not Ollie's, it was Walmart. It was in a pack of 3. All right, guys, here we go. Here we go. It's starting to thicken. It's starting to thicken. As soon as it starts to thicken, turn that foodie off and just keep on stirring and stirring and stirring and stirring. Look at it, look at it, look at it. We have just made vanilla pudding. Well, not quite yet because we still have to flavor it. But look at that. Oh my gosh. So just keep going, keep going, keep going. And now we're gonna pull this off the heat altogether. Now this is a thick, I call it pudding, but it's really a custard and it's pretty thick. I made it that way on purpose. If you were just going to make pudding to eat, this may be too thick for you. So you might want to use 3 cups of milk, maybe a touch more sugar, and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, or just cut down the cornstarch to 2 tablespoons if that's fine too. All right, let's pull this off. And we have made amazing pudding, except for it's right now it's just plain pudding, right? Because we haven't even flavored it. So now that it's off the heat, we're gonna put in 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract and whisk that in. Or if you wanted to make different flavors, you could do that too. Now, I have not made chocolate pudding this way. It is on my list. I know I'm going to get people to ask me, how can I make chocolate pudding that way? I'm not sure yet. I'm going to have to work on that and get a recipe out because it will be different, obviously, because you have to flavor it, probably with some cocoa powder and stuff like that. Okay. Now we're good to go. Okay, so my recipe has a twist to it. And the twist is that I lighten this up by folding in whipped cream. It's amazing. Let me just tell you, it took this recipe from something that was, in my opinion, to, woo, it's perfect, love it. Even my husband, he was like, this is the best banana pudding I've ever had. And I sent it to work with him, and his coworkers loved it as well. So this is really, it is a fantastic technique. But it does take a little bit longer because now we have to cool down our pudding, okay? Sometimes you can use the hot pudding and layer your dessert and then get it in the refrigerator to cool all together. But with this, because we're gonna fold in that cream, we have to get it chilled. So to do that, I take it out of this container. You could just chill it right in the inner pot if you wanted to. It'd be perfectly fine. Just pop the whole pot in the refrigerator, covered though with some saran wrap. But because while it is chilling, I'm gonna be making something else, I need my pot. All right, so amazing. So there you go, vanilla pudding. I mean, it's that easy, guys, it really is. And this recipe here makes 2 cups of vanilla pudding. And I bet you, I wonder how good it is right now, even though it's warm. Let me see. Because, you know, it's not a bad consistency. It'll thicken up a little bit more as it sits, but it's not a bad consistency for pudding. Let's see. It's so good. It's so good. But it's not as good as it's going to be when I fold in that cream. All right, get some cling wrap or some other kind of wrap, and you want to make sure when you're covering this to chill that you take the saran wrap all the way down. Let me just cut this off so it's easier. All the way down to the pudding layer, because pudding is notorious for getting a skin on it. And you want this to stay really nice and smooth. Now you could refrigerate this overnight if you wanted to. If you do that though, you probably want to put your egg whites in the refrigerator too, and then take them out 2 hours before you whip up the topping for the meringue. All right, so I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator. It's probably gonna take 1 to 2 hours for it to cool down enough, and then we will get to whipping up the whipped cream, getting the meringue whipped up, getting the whole thing assembled, and then into the oven to bake that meringue. So the custard is now chilled completely, and I've preheated the oven on 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we're gonna do my little twist on the banana pudding by folding in some whipped cream. Now you could use whipped cream that you buy at the store, Cool Whip, that would be perfectly fine, but you know we're doing this from scratch, so I'm gonna whip my own cream. It's very easy to do, especially if you have a stand mixer, but if you don't have a stand mixer, you can also use a hand mixer. I have 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. I'm just gonna pour that right in the bottom. I have the whisk attachment on the KitchenAid mixer. We'll lower this down, lock it into place, and I start out usually on medium, and then once it starts to thicken, I'll go up to high speed until we get a nice whipped cream. All right, that looks pretty good. Now let's see. Actually, you know what? It can go a little bit longer. So what I want to see is a little bit stiffer of a peak. Now you don't have to take this until it's really stiff. You certainly don't want to take it all the way to where it starts to separate and turns into butter, but maybe just another minute or so. All right, that looks good. Now I don't sweeten the whipped cream. That's because the custard already has enough sugar in it. But if you wanted it to be a little bit sweeter, you absolutely could put a little bit of powdered sugar in towards the end of mixing, or even some granulated sugar towards the end of mixing. All right, now let me get the bowl off of here. Now we're going to incorporate it into the custard, and I do that by folding it in. So what I'll do is take a little bit, you know, maybe about 3/4 of a cup, put it on top, dig down into the bowl, and turn. Dig down into the bowl and turn. Now this lightens up that custard, and let me tell you, it is so incredibly amazing in the banana pudding. Like, I wasn't really a fan of banana pudding when it's kind of thick, and I don't know, just wasn't really a fan. Once I did it this way, oh my goodness, it's good. 1 cup of whipped cream will give you about 2 cups, maybe even 3 cups of whipped cream. So heavy whipping cream, 1 cup will give you 2 to 3 cups when it's whipped. Just in case you wanted to take a shortcut and use Cool Whip, which is sweetened, by the way. So you may want to cut down on the sugar in the custard if you make that from scratch. Oh my gosh. This is beautiful. I wish I would have shown you how thick that custard was beforehand so you could really see how much this lightens it up. Oh, it's just delicious. Set this to the side, and let's fold the rest of this in, and then we get to assemble our banana pudding, and then I'm gonna make the meringue topping, which is super easy to do. Really adds a nice touch. It's a little more traditional. You don't have to add the meringue topping, but oh my gosh, it was so delicious with it. All right, that's good enough. I don't worry about mixing it all in where you absolutely can't see any differences in color. It's not gonna matter in the end product, but this is it, and it's, oh my gosh, it's so good. I should taste it, right? Of course. We have to taste things as we go. It's the only way we know if they're good. Look at how light, oh my gosh. This is magic right here. Oh my gosh, I could eat a whole bowl of that. So even if you want to skip the banana pudding and you just want a really delicious vanilla pudding, do it this way. It's amazing. You're gonna love it. Okay, so next up, we want to line an 8x8 dish. It can be disposable, it can be glass, it can be anything, and it doesn't even have to be 8x8. So I'm using an 8x8 square. You could use a round dish, you could use a bowl, you could use anything. Now, this is going to use almost all of the ingredients. I'm gonna try to fit all of them in, but when I tested the recipe, I did it in a disposable container because I was sending it to work with Jeff, so it was a little bit higher of a container. So we're gonna see. But whatever container you decide to use, just know that you need to adjust your ingredients accordingly. So if you wanted to make a huge pan, you know, for a big party, you would want to double all of the ingredients. So it'd be something like a 9 by 13 or even slightly bigger, okay? Double the ingredients. All right, so get your vanilla wafers. And line them up on the bottom here. What I usually like to do too is go through and take some of the real pretty ones that aren't broken and grab them out. Like that one has something on the top, so I'll just put it in there. And grab them out for the garnish on top. That one looks good. See, that one looks a little dark. I'll put it in there. All right, let's grab the bananas, a very important part of banana pudding. And I'll just get one off. I usually use about 3 bananas for a batch this size. But if you really like, you know, more bananas, put more bananas in. It's perfectly fine. Now you can toss your banana slices in lemon juice to prevent browning. I don't find that to be necessary because it's going to be covered in the pudding anyway. And so I don't find that you really need to do that. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead. Sometimes I'll just cut it right over top of the bowl, but you don't have control over where it lands. So I'll just chop it up and place them on. So I'm doing these in about a 1/2 inch thick pieces. All right, and I like to use just ripe bananas. You obviously don't want them green or they'll be a little bit bitter, but I don't like to use bananas that are getting soft in this recipe. They will soften up, especially if you make it ahead of time and refrigerate it overnight. They will soften up a little bit, but I like to start out with firm bananas. That's just my preference. Then I just lay them all around. I don't think you can have too many bananas in a banana pudding, to be honest with you. You definitely want a slice of banana in every single bite. Now we're gonna put a layer of the pudding. So you could put about half on now. And then get it all the way over to each edge. I've never been a fan of like soft cookies. I like crunchy cookies. And so that's one of the reasons why I didn't really think I would be a huge fan of banana pudding. But what I found in this recipe, it turns out like cake. It's like cake layers. It's delicious. And now we're gonna do another layer of these cookies. Another layer of bananas. The rest of the pudding. So I used about 3.5 bananas. I could have used all 4 though. You wanna make sure that the pudding gets over all of the bananas if you wanna keep them from browning. Delish, delish. Okay, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8. 2 more pretty ones, hopefully, to be found in here. That's okay. All right, so I didn't quite use 1 whole bag. I think the box that I got to test the recipe with was an off-brand, so I think it was a little bit fewer ounces because I used the whole thing. Okay, set this aside. Now I'm gonna clean my mixing bowl and my whisk, and we're going to make the meringue topping. It's very important when you're gonna whip up egg whites to make meringue that your bowl is really, really clean, free of any fats, okay? Because if there's any fat in there whatsoever, your egg whites are not going to whip up. So let me do that, and then we'll get back here. We'll do the egg white, whip it into meringue, and then bake it in the oven for a few minutes, and then we're all done. Okay, so we have our egg whites, and now we're gonna whip them up. So I just put them right there in the bowl, and we're gonna go on high speed until they're nice and light and fluffy. One thing that some people do, which I've never had to do, but some people add a little bit of cream of tartar to their egg whites to keep them stiff. I've never found that necessary, so I'm not gonna do it, but feel free. You can add a quarter of a teaspoon of cream of tartar if you want. I also have some white sugar. I don't add a lot of sugar to the meringue, but I do like to sweeten it just a little bit. So what I'll do is I'm gonna take these egg whites to about 60 to 70% done. Then I'll start adding in a half of a tablespoon of the sugar at a time until it fully incorporates. I've got it locked, and we're gonna go on high speed. Okay, let's see. All right, that looks good. So what I have here are soft peaks. They're not very stiff. That is what you want. I made the mistake before when I tested the recipe of whipping the egg whites just a little bit too much, and they form stiff peaks, and I had a hard time getting it to have those nice peaks and valleys on top that makes it so beautiful. So don't whip it too much. You just want soft peaks. Now, I will say, even though it was whipped too much, it was still absolutely delicious. So if you do whip it too much, don't worry about it. It was amazing. All right, so let me go ahead and get this off here. And then what I like to do is just sort of pour it on. Now, you want to kind of pour it in different places because what we're going to do is smooth it and then peak it up. And I am not a professional at this at all, so don't judge. I'm gonna do the best I can do. And if you have any tips for doing it better, you let me know. I've never made meringue before I started testing this recipe. I was quite shocked at how easy it is and really how delicious. Well, actually, that's not true. I've made meringue cookies. I have done that before, but never a baked meringue topping on anything. All right. So now carefully move this all the way over. I try to get it all the way over to the edge, but sometimes the pudding will peek through, and that's okay. All right, now I'm going to try my hand at trying to get like peaks. Maybe I won't do so well, huh? Maybe there's a better, maybe there's an easier way. I don't know. But, oh no, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Look. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm sure there's an easier way to do it, but it looks so pretty. Look. It's beautiful. Okay, now we're gonna put it into the oven. You want it, obviously not hitting the top of the oven, but you want it on the higher rack. Maybe not the highest rack in your oven. I have it the one step down, so this will fit in, but the top will be close to the heat because we only want to bake this for about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. So it'll start to brown. Wait till you see it, it's gorgeous. So I'm gonna pop that in the oven right now. Amazing, it's beautiful, and it's going to taste incredible. And listen, if you're like intimidated by making a meringue topping, this is only the third time I've done it in my life, and it's turned out great each and every time. It's super easy to do. It just looks amazing. So what you want, and I think I probably went about 7 minutes, so it didn't even take the full 10 minutes. But what you want to see from your meringue topping is that it's set all the way around, okay? So it's not, you're not pulling off any egg whites. And then you've got these peaks that are nicely browned, okay? Probably could have gone another minute or two, but I was so afraid I was gonna burn this guy here that I thought, nope, better safe than sorry. So now you could technically serve it right now, put your decorations on and serve it. But we've warmed up the pudding some, and I honestly think it tastes better the day after. So I like to put it in the refrigerator overnight, or at least for about 4 hours, okay? So that the pudding cools and absorbs some of the flavor from the bananas. Because I was shocked at how banana-y the pudding was after I let it sit, and I did it the day before and served it the next day. It was unbelievably delicious. So I'm gonna pop this in the refrigerator for at least 4 hours, maybe even overnight, and then I will show you how to decorate the top, which is really just sticking these little things in. The reason we do that is just so everyone knows it's banana pudding because of the iconic Nilla wafer. All right, now time to put the finishing touches. Of course, it's optional, you don't have to, but it's how people know it's banana pudding, right? You could put these in any which way you want. I mean, you could stick them on top, it would be pretty. You could lay them on top. I wouldn't lay them on, I would actually put them up. But what I'm gonna do is put them maybe 3 to a side. Kind of like that. And I do recommend doing this right before you serve it, okay? So that these cookies stay crunchy. All right, there we go. It's beautiful. Now, I set aside 10 cookies, but I actually used 12. So, you know, set aside as many as you want to use for your decorations. But anyway, look at how beautiful this is. I almost don't want to cut it, but I really want to eat it, so we're going to cut it. All right, time for the best part. We get to taste it, or I get to taste it. All right, let's dig in here. Oh my gosh. Look at this. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh my gosh. Just put that over there. All right, let me move this out of the way so you can see. Look at this. The pudding, the meringue, the vanilla wafers, the bananas. Oh. Oh my gosh. And it's not too sweet, which is what I like. Now, I will tell you, this is better if it sits overnight. I didn't let it sit overnight, and I don't taste as much of the banana in the pudding. So do yourself a favor, make this the day before you want to serve it. It's going to be even better. Just don't put these cookies on top until you're just about to serve it, or they'll get soggy in the refrigerator. It's still delicious. All right, so let me explain the meringue topping. Oh, I don't even know how. It's like biting into a cloud, okay? A cloud of deliciousness. It's a little bit toasted, but it just totally dissolves in your mouth. It's so much better than topping it with whipped cream. It's worth the extra effort. And now, the mega bite. Absolutely delicious. I know you're gonna love this version. Takes a little bit of time, more time than probably the box pudding mix and all that stuff, but not that much more time, and it's so worth it. Not only will this wow anybody that you serve this to, it's gonna wow you. It's amazing.